So let's talk about the solar eclipse that's coming up here in 2024. This has been a topic of discussion among a lot of people lately, and I figured I would just kind of chime in, give you guys my thoughts on what I believe and how to attack this type of date that people are setting. First off, I think it's important to be mindful of people who set dates. There's a lot of people who set dates, and the danger of doing that is that people who are not very sound in their faith or in their doctrine have the possibility of falling away. So be hyper aware of people who are setting dates. Now, is it something to pay attention to? Absolutely. It is something to pay attention to, but there's a million other things to also be paying attention to as well right now. And it's on us to be prudent in those matters and to try to track as much as we can, but also, that's a good thing to do, but we never want to lose sight of the main goal. And the main goal has and always will be to share the gospel so that we might win some for Jesus Christ. Now, there's only one way to obtain salvation, and that is by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man shall boast. So I want you to understand that that's like where I'm coming from. And I am also going to talk here on the idea of a pre-tribulation rapture. That's because I believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. What is pre-tribulation rapture? That just means that the rapture is going to occur before the tribulation begins. Now, if you read Daniel 9, chapter 24 through 27, you will get an insight on the greatest prophecy that is in the Bible, in my opinion. It's down to, the Holy Spirit broke it down for us in anything and everything except for nanoseconds, essentially. It's a phenomenal study. You should really look into it. We did that study of Daniel, and we also went through it when we went through the study of Revelation. So those videos are up if you're interested. However, the rapture is going to occur before the tribulation begins. Daniel 9:27 speaks on the Daniel 70th week, is what people refer to it as. And Daniel 70th week is also takes you back to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7, because in Jeremiah 30, verse 7, it refers to that time, Daniel 70th week, as the time of Jacob's trouble. Now, if you know anything about the Bible, you understand that Jacob's name was changed from Jacob to Israel. So if you know that his name was Jacob and then it was Israel, and then you read Jeremiah 37 again and you read it in that kind of context, and you hear it and you understand that it is the time of Jacob's trouble or the time of Israel's trouble. Why is this important? This is important because because of everything going on over in the Middle East right now. You see all of these nations kind of ganging up on Israel right now. You see Hamas, you see Hezbollah is getting very, very emboldened right now. And now you're seeing Iran starting to get involved much more heavily than they ever have been before. Turkey, Russia, all of those nations are mentioned in Ezekiel 38 and 39 war, Gog and Magog war. And so those studies are interesting as well. My point here is that, yeah, this solar eclipse is something to pay attention to. I just don't want you to get lost in it, because some people fall away. Some people get discouraged when a date is set and they were promised that the rapture was going to happen, and then it doesn't. And then the date passes, then people fall away, people get discouraged, and then they kind of go back and they just fall down. And so I don't want you to be one of those people. And so that's why we're talking about this right now. But I believe that the rapture is going to occur first. I don't think it's going to happen on April 8th here in 2024. I think it's something to pay attention to. Yeah, sure. Why not? But also, on top of that, take note of what all the other things that are happening as well. Right now, not only this eclipse, but you can add so many other things to it. You have the 4 red heifers that are over in Israel right now. Many people speculate that one of them or all of them will be sacrificed here in April of 2024 during Passover in Israel. That's mind-blowing. They don't necessarily need a temple to do those sacrifices, but it's very interesting to see how all of these lines are converging all at once. So you have the eclipse, you have the 4 red heifers, you have the third temple that's being talked about and how they want to build it really badly right now. They have all the pieces to build the temple right now. That's mind-blowing considering that. So whenever they get the green light, they're going to build it, and it's going to take no time at all. And then on top of that, everything we mentioned about that's happening over in Israel. And also, we have all of this technology that's being released left and right. And you know that there's going to be some day in the future where there's going to be a guy who rises up called the Antichrist, and he's going to control everybody, and he's that's left on the earth during the tribulation. And you will not be able to buy or sell unless you have the mark of the beast. That's mentioned in Revelation chapter 13. But my point in bringing that up is to kind of make you think about our current monetary system. We have all of these dollars that are just being printed off left and right, and so you can probably assume that there's going to be a crash, and when there's a crash, that would be the perfect time to introduce a new system. So I just want you to be aware of the central banking digital currencies. That's something that is very important to pay attention as well. And then also, obviously, we have Neuralink that's been introduced. So you have all these things that are being thrown at you all in the span of 2 or 3 years, and it just seems like everything is speeding up faster and faster. Now, this whole eclipse thing is interesting to talk about, but I want you to be mindful of what everybody was talking about in September of 2023. Because in September of 2023, everybody was talking about the Revelation 12 sign, and everybody was like, oh, these constellations that are up in the sky, and there's going to be a comet going through the belly of the woman and all this kind of stuff, and the belly or the comet's name is child. And they were using it, and they called it the Revelation 12 sign. Now that's, it's something, again, it's something to pay attention to. However, there were people saying that that's when the rapture is going to occur, and there's nobody who knows when it's going to happen. So it's just something to pay attention to. But if you study Revelation chapter 12, you know that the first couple, like 4 verses or so in Revelation 12, are referring to Joseph, his brothers, and his mom, his dad, because that is very clear. It's very clear that is directing us to focus on Israel, because Joseph, his brothers, mom and dad, that's Israel. That's, they all entered Egypt as a family, and they all left Egypt as a nation. So these are things to pay attention to. However, be very mindful of anybody who's setting any kind of dates, who's saying that this is it, that this is when the rapture is going to occur, because that will just leave you down a dark path of discouragement, and I don't want you to do that. So I want to encourage you to stay focused on the thing that actually matters, and that is to share the gospel with other people. If you are a Christian, which I hope you are, then tell people about it, because if you study the book of Hebrews, then you'll know that Paul, if assuming he wrote the book of Hebrews, he directs us to Numbers chapter 13 and 14, and he wants us to unpack what happened there. And so in Numbers 13 and 14, he tells us about Kadesh Barnea. And so in Kadesh Barnea, that's where all of the people wandering through the wilderness, the Israelites there, they weren't allowed to enter the promised land. Why? Because they lacked faith. And so the only 2 people out of all the hundreds and thousands and millions of Israelites wandering through the wilderness during that time, the only 2 people who are allowed to enter the promised land was Joshua and Caleb. Moses wasn't. So my point here is that, yeah, if you want to get lost in this whole solar eclipse thing coming up, and say that that's the destruction of America, you can go ahead and get lost in it if you want to. I would recommend you not to. But if you do, and if you do truly believe that the rapture is going to happen on April 8th, then why wouldn't you go out and tell people about Christ? Why wouldn't you want to go out and tell people and try to win as many as you can? Because going through the book of Acts, Paul, once he became Paul, because he once upon a time was Saul, and then he became Paul once he had that encounter with Jesus Christ, he was going everywhere. He was persuading anybody that he possibly could. He was meeting them where they were at and trying to win them for Christ, because he understood the sense of urgency, how important it actually was. So my challenge to you is to do that. This is the whole solar eclipse thing is just another drop in the bucket as far as I'm concerned. I think I'll pay attention to it, but I'm not going to get lost in it. And I want you to be mindful and just everything. Don't think that everything is falling apart, because that's not what's happening. Everything is falling into place. And this was told like this, this was foretold thousands and thousands of years ago. So that's what I want you guys to focus on. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.